Okay, so in front of you, you should be looking at the Teal-Pfeiffer essay, argumentative essay, and we're going to be looking at the structure of this essay. It is rather different from the Taylor-Dunham argumentative essay. Taylor-Dunham's essay was very basic, common essay structure, introduction with thesis statement, argument one, argument two, counter-argument and refutation, and then a conclusion. This essay, however, has a slightly different approach here. So let's take a look at it. All right, here's the introductory paragraph. And in this paragraph, we're using emotional appeals to try and establish a common ground with our readers. We don't actually have a thesis statement inside of this introduction, but it does work to not only get the audience on to this on Teal's side, but it also establishes the topic, the general topic. So let's take a look at what it says. Collarbones, hip bones, cheekbones, so many bones. She looks at the camera with sunken eyes, smiling, acting beautiful. Her dress is Versace or Gucci or Dior, and it is revealing every bone and joint in her thin, thin body. She looks fragile and beautiful, as if I could snap her in two. I look at her and feel the soft cushion of flesh that surrounds my own joints, my own shoulders and hips that are broad, my own ribs surrounded by skin and muscle and fat. I am not nearly as fragile or graceful or thin. I look away and wonder what kind of self-discipline it takes to become beautiful like the model in my magazine. Okay, so we have a very visceral beginning here. She discusses her own feelings while looking at a model in a magazine. We can really see the bones in this model. We can see how beautiful she looks, how fragile she looks, and we can also feel our own, you know, larger bodies. And we can identify with this. And we also know what the problem is, right? The problem is, what kind of self-discipline it takes to become this, quote, beautiful. So we're on board at this point. We're willing to get in there. Our interest has been piqued, and our minds have been open to the possibility of whatever this writer is going to present to us. Paragraph 2 presents background information on the problem and cites some sources. So here we have background information. By age 17, a young woman has seen an average of 250,000 ads featuring a severely underweight woman whose body type is, for the most part, unattainable by any means, including extreme ones such as anorexia, bulimia, and drug use. And here we have our in-text citation. The media promote clothing, cigarettes, fragrances, and even food with images like these. In a culture that has become increasingly visual, the images put out for public consumption feature women that are a smaller size than ever before. And then here we have evidence of that. In 1950, the White Rock Mineral Water Girl was 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 140 pounds. Now she is 5 feet 10 inches tall and weighs only 110 pounds, signifying the growing deviation between the weight of models and that of the normal female population. Here we have our in-text citation again. So this is background information on the problem. The models we see are skinny because of anorexia, bulimia, drug use. And because society has emphasized the visual more and more throughout history, we can see that the models that were used are much larger than the models that are being used now. And this is the problem. Next paragraph. This next paragraph introduces this very specific problem. And that specific problem is the ads encourage women's poor body image. So here's the background information on the problem, but here's the actual issue, the actual trouble with this. And she writes, this media phenomenon has had a major effect on the female population as a whole, both young and old. 5 to 10 million women in America today suffer from an eating disorder related to poor self-image, and yet advertisements continue to prey on insecurities fueled by women's desire to be thin. Current research shows that 80% of American women are dissatisfied with their appearance, and that 45% of those are on a diet on any given day. Yet even the most stringent dieting will generally fail to create the paper-thin body so valued in the media, and continuing efforts to do so can lead to serious psychological problems with depression. Okay, so we're going to come back to this paragraph. I know over here it says good reason for thesis, stringent dieting can cause psychological problems, but we haven't yet come to the thesis yet. And we'll see that the thesis is actually down here, state's working thesis. So just keep that in mind as we're going through it. We haven't actually gotten to that thesis yet, but here's one of the reasons. While many women express dissatisfaction with their bodies, they are not the only victims of the emaciated images so frequently presented to them. Young girls are equally affected by these images, if not more so. 80% of girls under age 10 have already been on a diet and expressed desire to be thinner and more beautiful. Again, we have an in-text citation, even though there's no quote here. It's paraphrased information from this video, Slim Hopes. Thus, from a young age, beauty is equated with a specific size. The message girls get is an insidious one. In order to be your best self, you should wear a size 0 or 1. The pressure only grows more intense as girls grow up. According to results from the Kaiser Family Foundation survey, reflections of girls in the media, 16% of 10 to 17-year-old girls reported that they had dieted or exercised to look like a TV character. Yet 2/3 of teenage girls acknowledged that these skin-thin characters were not an accurate reflection of real life. So here we're providing statistical evidence that the problem extends across age groups, and we're using logical appeals to back up our thesis statement as well. So here we're still kind of expanding upon this first problem. So this problem, we had the background information. The problem is that ads encourage women's poor body image. We're continuing to show evidence of this, and we're really expanding upon what that problem is. Stringent dieting causes psychological problems. Here's statistical evidence that the problem is not just for the young, it's for older women as well, very young and older people. And here again, a good reason for the thesis, which we haven't yet come to. Magazines feed our obsession with dieting. And here we're just expanding on that original problem that ads encourage women's poor body image. It is tragic to see so much of the American population obsessed with weight and reaching an ideal that is, for the most part, ultimately unattainable. Equally troubling is the role magazines play in feeding this obsession. When a researcher asked female students from Stanford University to flip through several magazines containing images of glamorized, super thin models, 68% of the women felt significantly worse about themselves after viewing the magazine models. So evidence that viewing those magazines will make you feel worse. Another study showed that looking at models on a long-term basis leads to stress, depression, guilt, and lowered self-worth. That should be self-worth. As Naomi Wolf points out in The Beauty Myth, thinking obsessively about fat and dieting has actually been shown to change thought patterns and brain chemistry. How do we reject images that are so harmful to the women and young girls who view them? Legislation regarding what can be printed and distributed is not an option because of the First Amendment rights. Equally untenable is the idea of appealing to the industries that hire emaciated models. As long as the beauty and clothing industries are making a profit from the physically insecure girls and women who view their ads, nothing will change. So here we're considering alternative solutions to solve the problem, basically. So the problem is that ads encourage women's poor body images. Here we have a couple options, but the author kind of rejects these solutions. So then the question the reader has is, okay, well, what solution do you put forth? How do we solve this problem? So far the whole essay has been discussing the problem, the issue at hand. Here we have some alternatives, but the writer rejects these alternatives. So the reader thinks, okay, well, what then is your solution? And here we finally have the solution. Here we finally have the thesis statement. What, however, might happen if women stopped buying the magazines that print such destructive images? A boycott is the most effective way to rid the print medium of emaciated models and eliminate the harmful effects they cause. This is the thesis statement. A boycott would effectively solve this problem. So we had all of that information about the problem, and here we have the thesis statement, which is a boycott is the most effective way to solve this problem. If women stopped buying magazines that target them with such harmful advertising, magazines would be forced to change the kind of ads they print. Such a boycott would send a clear message. Women and girls reject the victimization that takes place every time they look at a skeletally thin model and then feel worse about themselves. Consumers can ultimately control what is put on the market. If we don't buy, funding for such ads will dry up fast. Okay, good reason. Boycotts have been effected. Presents a precedent and example as evidence.